Kevin Vonesper. Hey man, it's me, it's your old buddy Beefcake, the Mighty, from GWAR. Yeah. Hey man, your friend Keith Rankin wanted me to reach out and wish you, I guess, a belated birthday. Your birthday was on the 27th, and you turned 39. Ding 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 ding. Wow. I've got piss stains in the front of my fucking underwear. Older than you. Anyway, he wanted me to wish you a happy birthday and good luck. Wish you good luck hosting your GWARPod on YouTube. That sounds like it's going to be quite entertaining. Anyway, man, he also said, he asked me what my favorite Phantom of the Opera related movie or whatever it is, and I gotta say, here's my top three. The original black and white silent Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney Sr., yes, and the song Phantom of the Opera by Iron Maiden, and also the comedy movie sensation Phantom of the Paradise. Yes, excellent. Anyway, that's all I got for you. So, hope you enjoyed your birthday. It's going to be your last. GWAR's coming on tour and everybody's going to die, so I guess none of this really matters. But, yeah, hope you had a blast anyway. Cheers!
Get your GWAR cameos. I want to thank my brother Keith again for that birthday cameo from Beefcake the Mighty from GWAR. Hello, it's me, Kevin Vonesper. If you're watching, you found the GWARPod, my exploration into all things GWAR with people who are from GWAR, related to GWAR, just fans of GWAR. You never know, it's a mixed bag. But oh my god, I excited for the show tonight. This is going to be an epic interview, a story that has not been heard enough. I think we're gonna find out. But first, I got some things to talk about. First of all, well, this should go without saying, but this is a show about GWAR, so it is. Where's my slideshow? It is not safe for work. Just putting that out there. I usually forget to say this, but like, you're not safe here in the GWARPod. It's the danger zone. So you've been warned. Trigger warning, everything. Okay. I've been getting some really great feedback for the show. So hello, if you're out there. Thank you so much for the good, kind words. I've gotten some scumdogs, some work, and just like people are loving these interviews. And I wanted to shout out and point out this comment from previous guest and creator of the GWARPod logo, Hunter Jackson, the original Techno Destructo scumdog. Despite, oh yeah, this is the part of the show where I want to say that the views and opinions on this show of the guests of the GWARPod and their stories, I do not necessarily condone or agree or, just all that stuff. This band has a sordid history, and it is like a science experiment finding out all the details. I am just the explorer. But I love he says here, but I'm glad Kevin is doing this series, even if he is giving oxygen to a lot of Fox News, FAUX News. It's still fun and interesting. Slowly but surely, the truth of the whole GWAR story will ultimately come out. I think it's a good thing. Thank you, Hunter. You're welcome back anytime. Of course, go check out that Paramore episode. A lot of you were sleeping on that one, but it was a secret Techno Destructo episode too. So go check it out. Oh, and while you're here watching this on YouTube, go and give give it a like, give it a comment, subscribe to the channel. Let me, help me fight the algorithm. And if you like it, help support it. Share your favorite episode with a friend. A lot of people have been doing this, so I appreciate it. Keep doing it. Share this episode. Tell people about Death Piggy. And while you're at it, go to Spotify, because we are all on Spotify in all the glorious video that is the GWARPod. Go follow us there too, man, and tell your friends. And watch me at 3 times the speed so I speak really, really, really fast. Or you can like slow me down so I'm speaking really, really, really slow. The options are yours. Okay, a little bit of GWAR news. That was GWARPod news, but here's GWAR news. Yes, GWAR has announced their new tour, and they are the band in the middle. Listen, I have to apologize to anyone who's following me. I had a visceral reaction to this. It was not well thought out. A couple hours later, I ended up buying tickets anyways because, you know what? At the end of the day, okay, this is why I had a weird reaction. Not necessarily because I can't believe GWAR is not headlining above Mudvayne, but you know, that's why this could be a good thing, because this is going to be like what anthropology experiment, watching, you know, I've never really watched. How often do you get to watch GWAR win over new fans that may have never seen them in a setting that they're not used to? A large arena, okay, I'll bite. But this is why had a visceral reaction. Can you ever, did you ever believe that GWAR would be selling tickets to a show for over $500? Listen, get that money, GWAR. Go and get that money. Make some fans. I got some cheap seats. I'm going to be sitting in section 22 all the way at the top, because you know what? If you've experienced GWAR in the splash zone, let's try the exact opposite and see what that looks like. Let's hope it's going to be a cool show. I'm not a huge fan of Mudvayne, but I actually used to work for their management company, and I made a lot of content for them back in the day. So it is kind of cool coming full circle. I'll finally get to see Mudvayne. And I will say this, I do love me some Coal Chamber. So go support the Coal Chamber reunion as well. Okay, tonight on the show, original Death Piggy member, and technically, I guess, an original member of GWAR, Russ Bahorsky. I hope I said your name right. In his own words, want to know the ugly truth about the origins of GWAR? Want to know what Dave Brocky was really like? Want to know what happened on the very day that GWAR was invented? Well, tune in to GWARPod.
GWARPod comes from on
GWARPod. 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 GWARPod.
Hello, Russ.
Hey, how's it going?
How did I do? That was my first big monologue on this show. I just had to rant for a little bit.
That was great.
How do you feel about people buying GWAR tickets for over $500? Did you ever think that would happen when you were in the band GWAR?
Never thought that would happen. I can't honestly tell you what the ticket price was for those first few shows, but I would think it was no more than $5. So,
And what would that be in today's money? Like 20, maybe?
yeah, maybe.
Well,
Yeah,
hey,
if that.
whatever 530 plus Ticketmaster fees and parking at arenas and one drink costs, that's what GWAR's doing this year.
I just hope they're getting a good share of that, that ticket price.
Exactly. You know, that's why I was like, at first I was a little mad. I was like, how could my band GWAR, I'd have to pay $200, $500 to see them. No, those were the premium tickets, but still shocking. I'll tell you, shocking. I've never seen that before. But let's get that money, get those new fans. Let's have you headlining the arena next time, right?
You got it.
Okay. Oh man, I have so many questions for you, and I think I have a bunch of people in the chat who do too. I see you guys. We will address comments and questions from the crowd when it is appropriate. So I see you and we will get to you. Let's go way back. What was Death Piggy your first band ever? And if not, what was your first band ever?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I guess I went through the whole thing of playing in various bands in high school, none of which were.
What was the name of the first one?
Yeah. Okay. So my friend Bobby and I were learning to play the guitar together, and I would say this was kind of mid high school. He and I were both Boy Scouts at the time, temporary situation for me, but nevertheless, there it was. He had this sash. You always struggle trying to figure out the name of a band because it has to mean so much.
Well, you finally found a band name that meant nothing. So
yeah, exactly.
Congrats later on. Spoiler alert, Death Piggy.
Although I knew that name, as soon as I heard it, I thought that is the name. But
well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So he had this sash that I guess was part of his Boy Scout uniform that was an arrow, and he said, "How about if we call ourselves Stone Arrow?" And I thought, okay, well that's good enough. We'll go with that for now. And
so Stone Arrow was
the first band, and I think we were just basically a cover band. 70s rock.
Well, at the time, 70s was only like a few years ago.
It was probably still.
It was 70s. Probably right, because if Death Piggy started in '82, I mean, this must have been what, late 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Probably 79. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
So yeah. It was classic rock even then. So I don't know how it became instantly classic.
So then, did you get into punk when it was happening?
It wasn't too long after that. I mean, I went through.
And where were you? Was this in Virginia?
Yeah, this was just Richmond, Virginia, basically. Okay. I grew up kind of sort of Charlottesville, and then moved to Richmond when I was in middle school. And, I was going through, discovering rock and roll and things like that. Kiss was my first love.
Okay, so you were on the theatrical rock track already.
Oh yeah, right from the start. Yeah. And I mean, Kiss was huge. They were everybody's favorite band at the time. I mean, I guess some people will deny that, but it was hard not to be a Kiss fan.
Yeah, they were superhero rock stars. Like, how cool is that? You've never seen that before.
That's right. So I went through that phase, and then I guess it wasn't too long that I kind of started to see it as a little bit of a, the idea of corporate rock, even though I don't think we called it that at the time, you could kind of see that's where it was going. Big money, the Studio 54 thing, you kind of saw the excesses of celebrity life, not unlike the excesses of celebrity life now, but I think it was still kind of new then. And punk rock kind of appealed to me in that way, that it was kind of the anti-corporate rock. And, it wasn't, it wasn't the kind of popular stuff that everybody else was listening to. It was just new. It was something kind of exciting and different. And
I mean, so back then, like, how did you get into punk rock? Because it's not like you had the internet. You just find it on SoundCloud or something.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, it was much harder for sure. There were a couple of things that really helped, and one was Thrasher magazine was out at the time, as well as Maximum Rock and Roll, which I didn't know until later. But Thrasher was definitely popular, easy to get. You could walk into any drugstore, 7-Eleven, that sort of thing, and there it was. A lot of us were interested in skateboarding. I can't say I was ever any good at it, but certainly tried. And kind of the lifestyle of the skateboarder was appealing as well. But there were ads in the back of Thrasher magazine that were advertising I think it was SST Records and Frontier Records, which were
Sure.
some smaller labels out in California. So that was
Didn't
kind of
SST sign the Alternatives at one point?
they did, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it did finally intersect with the Virginia punk rock scene.
Definitely, there was some connection there. Yeah, I mean, it was all very interconnected. I mean, the whole punk rock scene, I think, was kind of a underground spread out over the whole country, and perhaps beyond the borders of the country as well. But you could go from one city to the next, and instantly sort of feel like you knew and belonged in those in those scenes, as they were called then, but in those communities of people who are interested in hardcore and punk rock.
Sure.
But the other thing too, and we were very lucky in Richmond that we had a music store called Plan 9 Records, which is still around, doing.
Plan 9, like, was it named after the film or the Misfits?
As I believe it was named after the film.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was basically a little 2-room operation at the time. Not much bigger than a walk-in closet is these days. Or two walk-in closets. There were 2 owners at the time. One was interested in science fiction books, and the front room was kind of full of science fiction books, pocketbook,
Little novellas.
paperback books, yeah. And the other room was records, and there were all these independent labels that you couldn't find in the mall stores, and SST was there, Frontier Records, the Adolescents.
Yeah, Tony Adolescents. He's in my documentary.
Yeah, okay, yeah. The Sex Pistols, not all the other records that they did. You could probably walk into the mall store and find. I
mean, the Sex Pistols were still pretty new at the time. Got to put that in perspective.
They were, yeah. But yeah, you could walk into Plan 9, you could find all of their records, as well as some of the older stuff, Ramones television and stuff like that. That was just really hard to find. So, kind of opened up a whole new world. And we just, kind of had to drive into the city, and it was all there in front of us. So it was kind of a jackpot.
So what kind of punk bands were you seeing, let's say, pre-Death Piggy?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, we were right in the backyard of DC, so all of the Discord stuff, we would make regular.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up later, but you guys played with Minor Threat?
Yes.
I want to know about that.
That was, pretty cool. But yeah, they were right in our backyard. I mean, an hour away. I mean, now driving to DC,
did you ever play with Bad Religion or love Bad Religion?
I listened to Bad Religion. We never played with them, as I recall. I'm pretty sure we never did, but yeah, they were definitely in the mix. But we were listening to stuff like Black Flag and the Circle Jerks from the West Coast. There was an album out called This Is Boston, Not LA, which was introducing us to the Boston scene. Discord had Flex Your Head. Right. All those bands were playing.
Oh man, tell me you kept that. I'm sure it's worth a fortune.
Flex Your Head? No.
Damn.
Unfortunately, got rid of all my vinyl. I went to graduate school.
Who knew those punk rock records would be gold at some point,
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, graduate school meant going across country to Arizona for me. So I kind of, I walked into Plan 9, in fact, with a crate full of records and said, hey, what can you give me for these? And, I need the cash. And I never looked back. So
nice. So let me ask this. So according to your liner notes for my Death Piggy record, and of course my GWAR little Bible here.
Yeah.
You met Dave at a punk rock show.
I did.
Was it right? And you were both going to the university?
So, technically I met him up in DC. There was a place up in Maryland called the Mill. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was part of like a local community or a county park or something like that, where they had 1 or 2 shows. And I met Dave there.
Who was playing at that particular show?
All I remember is the Necros that were
Oh,
there,
wow. Okay.
from Touch and Go, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
and they
Was the
were
meat
sort
men
of.
there with them?
I'm sorry, you are exactly right. The Meat Men
Really?
were playing with them. Yes,
Ah, I knew it. Oh, I love the meat men. And the meat men toured with GWAR extensively in the 90s.
yes, yes. In fact, that was right.
Tesco V.
I went to that show because all those Midwestern bands were playing, and it was the first time I'd had a chance to see
Oh
them.
man, I'm so jealous. That must have been a great show.
It really was. I mean, all of those shows were memorable. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was just.
So you met Dave at a Meatmen show. I
Yeah,
love this.
yes,
That is up. See, this is what we do on the GWARPod. We get these nuggets of gold in the details.
that's right.
No
That's right.
one has ever known that the Meatmen kind of helped spawn GWAR,
In many
basically.
ways, yeah. In many
Wow.
Yeah, so Dave was there. He had a handmade T-shirt on that he had drawn himself. You can't mistake Dave's art.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a hamburger with the squiggly lines coming out of it. I guess it was supposed to be a rotten hamburger or something like that. And I,
Hmm.
I just remember that image. And then Dave was kind of there. Didn't seem to know a lot of people. It was his stomping grounds, but Maryland, when you're up in the Northern Virginia area, Maryland can be very different from Northern Virginia. So he was up there kind of by himself, and we chatted for a bit. I didn't think any more of it, and then it wasn't until later that fall that he showed up in Richmond as a student at VCU, where I was still in high school at the time, but. Richmond had or VCU rather, had a courtyard where
Schaefer
bands
Court.
would play. Schaefer Court,
We
exactly.
love talking about Schaefer Court on this channel.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it's not unfamiliar to GWAR,
Yeah.
but
Some very landmark moments in that spot for
for sure,
GWAR
for sure.
and Death Piggy.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, so it was the first day of school for Dave at VCU. It was the first day of school for Sean Sumner, who would later become our drummer. Not much later. But and I was still in high school and coming down to see the shows in Schaefer Court on Friday afternoon. That show, in fact, I think was Millions of Dead Cops.
Oh wow, MDC.
Yeah, yeah. So they played in Schaefer Court, and then they played at another show at a club called the Cha-Cha, or the Cha-Cha Palace.
Wait, I have a quote about this place. Was this the same night?
It was the same night.
A Coke and dance dive bar for transvestites.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
That was how you worded it.
Yeah.
So that was the spot. What was it called?
There you go. The Cha-Cha Palace, and we used to just call it the Cha.
And they'd have punk bands play there.
They would, yeah.
Mhm.
They were just open to just about anything, and yeah. There were just a handful of clubs in Richmond that would, where punk bands could play, and that just happened to be one of them.
Nice. Wow.
But
So you met. So MDC played twice, once at Schaefer Court and once at this club. The first one you met Dave, and then later that night you met Sean,
right.
and then Death Piggy was formed. Oh wait, was he the first drummer of Death Piggy? Wait, let me get my trusty little family tree out. Death Piggy 1, Russ, Sean, Dave.
He was not the first drummer, though.
Oh no, we have an error in the Bible. Bob Gorman, do you know about this? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, we met this other guy. We met Sean that night, and then we, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I think Dave might have known this other guy who played drums, and might have already kind of talked to him about playing together. But we didn't like him very much. If he's watching this, I can't imagine why he would be. I'm sorry.
Come on the show, buddy. I'll hear your side of the story.
Yeah. We didn't know much about him, but we found out that he was Republican, a young Republican, and that was a deal breaker for us. So we kind of, we played once with him.
I can't see young Republicans and the punk scene clashing very well.
Yeah, no, just there was.
Unless you're Michael Graves.
Yep. So yeah, we just kind of walked away from that. Sean was kind of waiting in the wings. He was ready to go. So
Was he in any other bands? Because drummers are always in 10 different bands.
not at the time. No,
Hmm.
no, he was still pretty new.
Was Dave in any other bands? Because I know he had like a plethora of little projects always popping up.
Yeah, no, he was not. I mean, we met pretty much right as he was, you know, getting set up in Richmond, and I think he had maybe talked about playing with some other folks. But nothing formal happened, and then I was really the first one to say, "Hey, let's see what we can do."
Nice.
And so it was pretty much automatically, understood that we were a band.
So wait, did you actually play any shows with this other drummer?
No. It was just
Okay,
one of the
so
first.
that's a loophole, I think. Death Piggy 1, the first official show, was the three of you.
We'll call it on
Let's
audition.
say.
It didn't go well,
Sure,
and then
yeah.
Sean was basically the officially the first drummer. Yeah.
So I heard maybe the first rehearsal, I'm not sure, you can clarify, that you wrote 5 songs in the first
Oh yeah.
rehearsal.
Yeah.
And my research tells me the first one ever was Minute to Live. Is that true?
I think that probably was. Let me see. Nympho.
Yeah, Nympho's the other one I have. And do you remember the other 3?
Let's see.
See, we're getting into the nerdy details here on the GWARPod. That's what we're all about.
It might have been Spatterflick.
Nice.
Uh,
Classic, that one.
yeah. And
Let's see.
either
Eat the
Mangoes
People,
and Goats.
Batman, Mangoes and Goats.
That might have been Fat Man. I mean, I think.
Batman.
Yeah, I think you would have to be, among those those 3 songs right there.
Nice.
And maybe one other one or that we just didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
You write 5, you're bound to not like them all. But
yeah. Well, that is another question. Maybe I'll just ask it now. Were there a lot of forgotten Death Piggy songs like that weren't recorded or?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes, please. I want to know all the details.
So, over the last few years, and especially, kind of after Dave left us, there was some unpleasantness, let's say, about his estate. And I don't really know a lot about,
Sure.
a lot of the details about that. But, a lot of his stuff disappeared. A lot of tapes and things kind of went missing because there was just some uncertainty about, the legal status of those things. Gradually, several of them kind of came my way, from people who said, well, I have this, I'm not sure what to do with it. I'm not sure who to give it to or who rightfully owns it. Would you like it? And of course, my answer was always yes.
You're the one who doesn't live in Australia. I'll ship it to you.
That's right. That helps quite a bit. Yeah. So, I've kind of come across a number of recordings that, I didn't know existed. So since the Green album, has come out.
What's it called? Welcome to the Record.
Right.
The CD is Smile or Die.
Exactly. Now, we've been talking about doing another CD, possibly.
Yeah.
Dan Emery, who owns the record company that put that record out. We've been talking about a CD just as kind of a follow-up to the album or to the vinyl. And because, the CD gives us a little bit more room to play, we found and sort of cleaned up some of the live recordings of albums. Of a couple of live performances.
Was it like soundboard audio?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody
Awesome.
popped a cassette into the.
I see. This is where I was definitely going to ask about this. Tell me about the archive. What's out there? What are we ever? What are we going to hear one day? I mean, there was definitely a treat on here with the acoustic performance edition, and yeah, that's. I want to hear the band full force, though. I've never heard Death Piggy live.
Yeah. Well, there were some interesting things. I mean, we had a couple of songs that we added to that album.
Scabs, Ewoks, and Fear of Murder.
Exactly.
Were those all recorded together, or?
I think they were, in fact. Yeah, I think they were all from the same session.
And were those
Very-
like, might as well ask now, like, were those like the last recordings, or were they somewhere in the middle, or?
they were the very first.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so we
But
had
were those
one-
the other 3 songs that you wrote?
no.
No.
Well,
Okay.
let's see. Scabs was probably fairly early. Ewoks, maybe. I think that was something Dave wrote in high school and just, because
Cool. Okay.
Ewoks,
Yeah.
it was just
Well,
about,
when did Return of the Jedi come out? Because
we were in high school. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there was no Ewoks before then.
Right. At least I think it was high school. Anyway, yeah. It all gets kind of hazy,
Yeah.
but yeah, so those were, I think, our very first recording session, which was at a studio in Richmond.
1983. So
Yep.
that was after Return of the Jedi came out after Death Piggy was already a band.
Yeah.
Because I think you started in 82, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I don't know where Ewoks came from, but
Cool.
it's just one of those songs that appeared on the set list one
Sure.
day. We we played it for a while and then stopped. But anyway, just to kind of come back to that.
These
CD.
live recordings and archive material.
Yeah, so we polished up some of those, and admittedly they're not the greatest quality recordings, but they're there, and there's not a whole lot of live recorded material out there to choose from. So
Yeah,
we made the
sure.
best of what we had.
Are there songs in those sets that like haven't been heard before?
Oh, absolutely. Some of which
Oh
became
man.
some of which became DBX songs. So you'll have the opportunity to hear songs that were, that DBX did, but we did originally. So things like
Interesting.
"Damn That Money"
Oh,
and
didn't know that.
"Okay," songs like that were originally Death Piggy songs.
Huh.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to with the CD release, though, is I did some new liner notes for that, which talked about the very last set list Death Piggy ever did, which we sat down one day and we decided that we were going to play every song we ever played.
Was this show planned to be like a final show, and that's why you did it?
It was, and in fact, we did kind of the last show ever as kind of a gimmick for a while, because we all had different projects at the time.
Sure.
And we just
every show's either the last show or a reunion. That's the gimmick, right?
Exactly. And we were doing that, knowing full well that we'd probably keep doing it as long as we could. Sadly, that didn't turn out to be very long. But we sat down before the show one afternoon, and we just wrote down everything we could possibly remember. So the liner notes are about that set list, and there's some interesting things, I think. Not only are there some of the songs everybody knows, but there's some of the songs that we're missing. A bunch of the covers that we did, which I thought were kind of interesting, but many of not many, but several of the songs that were originally Death Piggy songs that became GWAR songs.
Yeah, wait, I was gonna bring that up. Let me pull your liner notes out.
Yeah.
You Ain't Shit, Rock and Roll Party Town, AEIOU. Those were all originally Death Piggy songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anything else? I know Minute to Live ended up being a GWAR song later on.
Yeah. I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. But yeah, that was kind of thing. We we had those songs. We'd already had sort of the core of the original GWAR set, and I think we played them a little bit differently as Death Piggy, but nevertheless, they were there on our set list, and so I'm looking forward to that CD coming out.
We are definitely looking forward to that too.
Yeah, it's another piece of history.
Please do a CD. Great history here. Yes. Oh, and here's one relevant to this conversation. I know Hunter didn't like Star Wars. Was Dave into it?
Of course, everybody was.
Even if you didn't admit it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge step forward in special effects, cinematography, for science fiction. I mean, it really took science fiction to a whole different level. And if you didn't like it, I think you had to. at least have some respect for it at the time, because it really was,
Cutting edge.
something very different from anything we'd seen before.
Let's take a break and catch up with some other comments. Let's see. GWAR Man is here. Hey, Benny. Present. Much support for all you are doing. Thank you, random fan. Can't wait. Yes, I can't wait to watch your show later. Check out. I hope that's you, right? Slaughter Noise Podcast just put up an interview with Chuck Varga tonight, so check it out. Evil, that's my brother. Thank you for the cameo. Hail Brocky, Rip Cobb, Knobler. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Howdy, what's up, Titties the Clown from Green Jelly. He will be on my other show, GWARPod, soon. Cliff is here. Oh yeah, we're talking about the Mudvayne show. Sure, yeah. Hope they make bank, though I'm waiting until the fall. Yeah, I'll go see it too. Didn't we see Mudvayne open for Ozzy? Nope, I don't think so. I think we saw some other lame new metal band, Stained or something. No, not Stained. I forget. I don't think we ever saw Mudvayne. Maybe. Play mid lineup, they won't get the full set. Yeah, that's going to be weird. Although I've seen them do that at the Sounds of the Underground Festival. Well, they probably got an hour there, though. So this is going to be super weird. Thanks, Cliff. Man, you guys are partying it up tonight. John Poppy is here. We're going to get some details for you, John Poppy. Don't just wait. Q for Russ. The poop. Let's talk about the poo pinata.
Sure. Yeah.
All have prior knowledge. That's what Dave was going to do. Let's skip right there. Sure, why not?
Yeah. So, all right.
Humongous.
Actually, the question should be the other way around. So Dave really didn't have much to do with the piñata. Sean Sumner and I were basically in his apartment getting ready for the show that night, and he had a cat that with a litter box that either I don't know what he was feeding the thing, but it was basically just overflowing.
Mm-hmm.
It was Sean's idea to do a piñata. And we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be funny? A bunch of punk rockers with a stick with a nail in it were, banging away at a piñata. We thought, well, maybe that's not really a good idea. A stick with a nail in it, in a crowded room, a lot of drunken punk rockers. That's probably not a good idea. But we kept the idea of the piñata going. We thought, well, is anybody really going to be interested in that? We throw some candy in, and then, we thought, oh, okay, well, let's go down to the local arcade. Let's get a roll of quarters, and we'll put that in there. People will see the money, and they'll go for it. At the same time, we were thinking, well, okay, sure. And then I kind of looked at the litter box, and I thought, why don't we make it interesting? Why don't we add a few more things to this?
Oh, so this was your idea.
That part of it, at least. For better, for worse. And I'll probably have to answer to some of those things, but they probably know by now. But yeah, that was Sean and I came up with the idea. And I'm not even sure that Dave knew what was in it. Although part of it was, and it was at a fundraiser for our first record for Love War. We were trying to raise the money to, I think we needed to buy covers, paper for covers at the time. So we thought, we'll put on a show, we'll charge $2 and we'll plow that back into the copy shop and make some more covers for the record. But we thought, well, people are coming out to see the show, they're paying money. We'll put little coupons into the piñata as well. There it is.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody realized that was, that there were any coupons in there, and I don't think anybody ever redeemed one. But that might have been Dave's idea. But other than that, I'm not sure that Dave knew what was in the piñata at the time until it came out over the floor. But definitely a memorable moment.
Well, yeah, that's good segue into. I wanted to ask about other antics that Death Piggy had been known for, I suppose, including, let's see, stage blood, wearable food, cream pies. Anything else that I'm missing? Like, what spawned this craziness with the Death Piggy?
Well, I mean, we never really wanted to just be,
Is it because
another
punk
hardcore
rock
band.
was way too serious at the time?
Say that again.
Was punk rock way too serious at the time?
It was. It really was. I mean, and not that we didn't appreciate that, to some extent, but you got to have, you got to have your comic relief as well. And I think, I mean, Dave and Sean were art majors. I was an English major, so not too far from studying the arts. But I think they were interested in performance art and that sort of thing. And had some idea that maybe we could sort of straddle the line and be a little bit of both. And every time we sat down to talk about what do we want to do in our show, I mean, first of all, we had that conversation. What do we want to do besides just play music? There was always something else that we wanted to do, whether it was, let's go down to the local thrift store and find some costumes to put on. There was one show that we did where we decided we were going to bring all of our living room furniture.
I heard about this. Yes, right. It was
Instead
like a
of
rehearsal.
Yeah. We were going to do one show backwards. I'm not sure that we actually ever did that, but set up the whole stage backwards. That was something we talked about. I'm pretty sure we didn't do it, but these were the kind of ideas that we came up with. We had one show where we made helmets out of watermelon halves and wore those for some reason. Thought that was an interesting way to do a show. Turns out it was kind of sticky and
I was going to
almost
say
got electrocuted. He had to stop because he was feeling, the electricity kind of coming through the microphone because he was soaking wet from the watermelon. But, those types of things we would often show movies in the background, art films, things like that, just kind of as background to what we were doing. But, it was always something different. There were props, some of the early proto GWAR props.
Yeah. Should we talk about Uncle Nobby?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Perfect example.
I think I got a picture of that somewhere. Right?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Yeah, it was just a prop that Dave had made in the studio, or Dave, I guess maybe Dave and somebody else. I don't remember exactly how it came about, but we just decided to use it on stage. That's Sean in the background. Sean had bought himself a nice lime green Stratocaster and wanted to play it on stage. So I think I was playing drums.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't he the drummer?
Yeah.
Huh. Did you guys switch instruments like often, or
not really?
Just one of your weird gimmicks that night?
Yeah, just something we did on the spur of the moment. Although there was one show where I remember it was a finale song. We were playing, I think, I can't remember what we were playing exactly, but at some point, the room just kind of erupted, and I handed my guitar to somebody and just kind of dove out into the audience. Dave must have handed his bass off to somebody, and Sean, I guess, at some point, abandoned the drums to somebody else. So the song never stopped playing, but it must have been 10 minutes later. The three of us met at the bar, looked at each other like, well, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's how GWAR is going to continue too, I think.
But yeah, it was just one of those things.
Wait, what about this one? Rock opera about Peoria and cabbage.
Yeah.
Peoria and cabbage. Is that something that actually happened?
I don't think we ever played it, but Dave was determined to write, a concept album at one point, or at least a rock opera of some sort. I don't think he ever really intended for it to be a thing that we did more than once, but we tried. Didn't come out very well, but yeah. It was about the invention of cabbages in Peoria by George Washington. As I recall, that was kind of.
It sounds really boring to me.
It was, yeah.
I'm sure Dave would make it really interesting, though.
Well, that was the thing about half the stuff we did or thought we're doing on stage. It was funny to us at the time, absolutely not to anybody else.
That's what I was going to ask at some point. Did you alienate the punk rock scene with your silliness?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Like I heard, I don't know if this was during or before Death Piggy, but were you at the show? Apparently, like Dave was getting beat up by Minor Threat and stuff like that.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
he was like bullied by the DC punk scene because he was too weird or something and like not straight edge and all that shit.
Ian liked us. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as I know,
Maybe he probably met him later on and didn't know that it was the same person.
that's possible.
You know?
That's possible. Yeah. But Ian liked us. And I mean, we had some really interesting people kind of come out of nowhere and say, and really be our fans. Ian,
Jello
Jello
Biafra. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, that's part of your history is Jello getting a hold of the Death Piggy, and he wrote something about it, right? And he became a
Yep.
fan. Of course, he's ended up in GWAR's movie Skullhead Face, and he spoke at Dave's memorial.
Exactly.
So that's a relationship that really lasted the whole time.
Exactly.
Did you ever play with the Dead Kennedys?
No, never did. Unfortunately, no. Yeah, would like to, but yeah, just didn't work out.
Oh well. But did he ever come see your shows? Did you ever see him in the audience?
To my knowledge, no, he never saw us live.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let me consult my book. Like I got my whole slideshow here.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so small. I tried. Let me see. Oh. Jello Biafra. Yes. Oh, tell me about this. So it says in June 1984, Death Piggy played Charlottesville, Virginia, and Brocky got permission from Jackson to wear all the Scumdogs costumes that existed at that point. He wore all of the costumes all at once. Sumner, meanwhile, wrapped himself in duct tape, toilet paper, feathers, and stuff, while Bahorsky wore a theatrical magician's outfit. Was this the first GWAR show, or was this a Death Piggy show?
So I think that was misremembered.
Yeah, that sounds like the first GWAR show and something else with Death Piggy.
Yeah. I mean, we were experimenting with costumes. By experimenting, I mean we would go to the thrift store and we would buy whatever we could find that just looked ridiculous and wear it on stage. When Dave, discovered the costumes that Hunter was making for his movie, it was already kind of in the back of our minds that this is the kind of thing we're playing around with, so he kind of brought the idea back to us and said, yeah, this is kind of what we want to, we want to see if we can build something around this. The very first time we ever wore them, and there may have been, I think that show in Charlottesville, Dave may have worn a piece of, costume or two. But it was the first time we wore them was at a show that we were asked to do at the old 930 Club. Suicidal Tendencies was playing at the time.
Right.
Was scheduled to play. They were huge at the time because they were the first punk band that had an MTV video. And this was kind of after that video had come out and made the rounds. They were on their
institutionalized.
Institutionalized, exactly. Yeah. So it was going to be a big show. We knew it was going to attract a lot of people that we didn't know, and that
here it is.
There it is, exactly. That's the one. So we kind of talked about, well, what are we going to do? Again, one of those conversations. What do we want this show to be about? And we knew that we had the costumes. We also kind of knew that.
Wait, that's the first GWAR show, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. So you didn't wear the costumes during Death Piggy?
Not really. No. I mean, never really. I mean, the two never really.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so that's why I was questioning that. I wanted to get the story behind that statement. It seemed like two different things.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to not talk about the first GWAR show yet. I want to tease that a little bit and do some more Death Piggy.
Okay.
But we're definitely going to talk about that. Don't you worry.
Good.
Let's see what I got here in my slideshow. Is this any of you guys?
Yeah, that's me on the skateboard.
Nice. All right,
And
so you had a little bit of skateboarding skills.
a little is probably generous, but yeah. The two guys above me there, that's Bob and Steve Schick, and Bob was a singer for Honor Roll,
Hmm,
and Steve was a drummer.
cool.
Um, so very well respected hardcore band from the late '80s.
Yeah.
Um,
Look at you. You guys look like babies.
yeah, that
I mean,
was
how old were you? How old were you when Death Piggy started? Like 17,
I
18?
was 17. Yeah, I was in high
Wow.
school in that picture. Yeah,
Holy
yeah.
crap. That's great. What here, let me ask you this. What was the first Death Piggy show ever?
It was at that very club at Benny's. Benny's
So
was a
this is
club.
Benny's?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Benny's was right. Benny's basically faced a park that was surrounded on one side by VCU dorms. Um, and it was kind of the, one of the more important hardcore clubs in Richmond at the time. Yeah, I want to say it was Richmond's version of the 930, but that's kind of an
Sure.
approximation of
I
what
mean,
it was.
there probably weren't many punk clubs at the time.
There weren't. I mean, there were more
Yeah.
than you would think. There were a couple. There was a biker bar further up the road, that kind of let punk bands play a couple nights a week. There were, there was the Cha Cha Palace that would have some punk rock shows now and then, and a couple of other places. There were also parties, you know, basement parties and things like that where you could go see shows. But yeah, Benny's was the first show. We band called White Cross, which
Oh,
is
it's part of the GWAR family tree, right?
yeah, basically, yeah. A lot of those guys.
Let's see, where's my family tree here?
Hunter, let me see who was in White Cross. That
White Cross, well,
Dewey
Dewey and Rob
Rob
Mosby.
Mosby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mosby. Yeah, they both ended up in GWAR for a while.
exactly. But White Cross, yeah, originally was their show, and we they gave us an opportunity to open for them. I think we did 5 songs, probably the very songs we
So
wrote.
yeah, quick set.
Yeah, yeah. They were terrible. I think I don't think we got paid anything. If anything, we got paid enough. We might have got paid $2.
Hey,
Just out of the generosity of somebody who who thought we should get something. And as I recall, we bought the only 6-pack we could afford. That $2 would buy it was terrible stuff. But we felt good about it. But yeah, that was the first one, and that would have been 1982.
gotcha. All right, let's see. My brother wants to know, what gear were you using and did that change over time?
Me personally, so yeah, I played an Ibanez guitar, which I had pretty much. In fact, if it's the very guitar that's pictured on the Love War record, as well as the
Right.
first album that we did that came out of there was a Spanish company that published.
Oh, not that. Get my Love War back up. That one?
Yeah.
I guess it's in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere.
There
it
you
is.
go.
Yeah, Ibanez guitar CN100, I think, was the model. I can't tell you, what it was a copy of, but pretty much everything was Ibanez did at the time was a copy of something. It was a great guitar. I played. I had a Fender Super Twin, I think it was, which great amplifier, but I think I blew it up finally. Just bad wiring in one of the clubs, and it just started. It just caught on fire. But
Another gimmick.
yeah, exactly. Dave, played that PV bass for a while, and then some. I don't know what happened to that, and then he found a Fender bass. I think that he played for a while after that, which was kind of a piece of junk, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what Sean played. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That Ibanez guitar kind of lasted me a long time. It was a solid instrument.
All right, let's talk about Schaefer Court, because you guys started some kind of riot. What's the story here?
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
we had the idea to sit down and talk about what do we want to do for this show, and one of the things was, well, let's make some cream pies and throw cream.
Oh, this is the cream pie story.
That was the cream pie show. And yeah, I think that was really pretty much it. The cream pies came out. One of the police officers got hit with a cream pie. He didn't like that very much. And I mean, I wouldn't call it a riot. I mean, it was no different from any other punk rock show at the time. We were having fun. Cream pies kind of went out. I think there were paper airplanes or something like that were flying around. But
yeah, something like that. Let's see.
Yeah.
I
think people got a little angry when the police the campus police wanted to shut the show down.
Wait, I think I have a picture. Is that it?
Yeah, that's the guy, the tall one. He's the one. He got hit in the back of the head with a cream pie, and didn't appreciate it. Well, who would? But but he shut us
sense
down.
of humor.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, the name of your band was Death Piggy. They could have interpreted that some kind of way, I'm sure.
Exactly. Which it never had anything to do with that.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah.
I mean, not of course. I guess that is good to clarify.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. There was a song that I think it was MDC did called "Millions of Dead Cops," or I'm sorry, "Corporate Death Burger." Millions of Dead Cops.
Yeah, that's the band name for sure.
Right. But they had a song called "Corporate Death Burger." We were sitting in Dave's dorm room one day trying to figure out what we were going to call ourselves, and we'd taken weeks to try to figure out what name we were going to be before he came up with Death Piggy. Friend of ours was so Dave had drawn the pig face on his refrigerator, the little dorm refrigerator, and and I was like, yeah, we could I mean, that would be something we could easily spray paint around town, or people could spray paint for us, because Black Flag had its symbol. The Germs had their blue circle, and we wanted something we could spray paint, and that was easy to do. So we're sitting there thinking, well, that would work. What would we call ourselves? And I think that song came on, "Corporate Death Burger," and this friend of ours, Beth, was kind of there. She had a Sharpie, and she was writing "Corporate Death Piggy," sort of around the picture of the pig. And I think I pointed to it and said, well, what about that? And, Dave and Sean kind of shrugged and said, sure, until we can think of something better. And never did.
Yeah, 40 something years later.
Yeah.
Here we are.
And that's kind of how that came about. So it was really just more, it was just kind of just happenstance that the name came about, and we just kind of stuck with it because we couldn't think of anything better.
You guys played with Dent, wasn't that Mike Dirk's band?
It was, yeah. Yep.
What were they like? Do you remember?
Really polished, as I recall. I don't. He might feel differently about that. But as I recall, they were just really polished. I mean, I always thought a lot of his playing. And I think you compare his guitar playing to mine on some of the songs that DBX did, especially when you're able to hear the ones that Death Piggy did. Yeah, you'll hear a clear difference. Much better, especially on the metal side of things than I was able to be. So I thought a lot of Dent, for that reason. That I just thought they were a lot more polished.
Oh, I had a question about Void in here.
Sure.
Let's see.
Oh man, Void! I loved Void.
Someone said, yeah, what bands influenced Death Piggy? Void had a bit of a sillier side of punk around that time too.
Yeah, Void definitely, all of the Discord bands were, very important to us. But on top of that, I mean, I was very affected by the Gang of Four and Andy Gill's style of guitar playing. In fact, on a couple of the songs, I ripped off some chords that I think I figured out from some of his songs or some of their songs and kind of put them into Love War. So, I mean, if you're a fan of the Gang of Four and you listen closely, you can probably hear a little bit of Andy Gill in some of those songs. But I was really interested in what he was doing, as kind of a, he was playing guitar in a way that really nobody else had played it, bringing kind of a funk influence as well into his playing. But that was important to me. Flipper was a huge influence
Flipper, yeah.
on all of us. I mean, we would put their generic album on all the time. It was just always on. So I think as far as punk bands go, those were kind of the big ones for us. But there were also the metal bands. We had grown up as metal kids, and Dave, I think, always had a copy of Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath's album, and War Pigs was always on the always on the turntable. At some point, Dave and I were roommates for a little while. In fact, the year that we came up with GWAR, we were roommates at the time.
Did you live in the dairy?
I did not live in the dairy. This was just.
So this was before the dairy?
Before the dairy, yeah. Yeah. So at the time we were practicing in the dairy. That was, we had gotten chased out of just practically every other practice space we had tried to settle into. And finally the dairy came along as a viable place where, people accepted a little bit of noise. And so we were practicing there at the time. And eventually Dave went on to live there. But at that time, around 1985, I guess it was, we were roommates for a year.
What was that like?
It was great. Dave wasn't a bad roommate. In fact, there were five of us. There was me. There was Scott Krall, who you may know.
Yeah, of course. Scott, we want you on the show. We want to hear from Scott Krall.
Absolutely. Yeah. Scott's a great guy. We've been friends since the very beginning. I met basically Scott shortly after I met Dave, because he and Dave had gone to high school together and were friends as kids. Ben Eubank, who became the first singer for GWAR. He was Johnny Slutman.
Okay.
Let me see who else was there. A guy named Britt Ryle, who was a bass player for a band called Graven Image, which is a Richmond hardcore band. Is that five?
I lost count. That sounds about right. You, Dave, a couple other people.
Yep. And so, it was right there that everybody was a pretty good roommate. Believe it or not, it was a clean place. Nobody was too much of a slob or anything like that. So, I've had worse.
Fair. We have some other royalty in the house. Hunter's here.
Hey, Hunter. All right.
The Alternatives used to wear the costumes and warm up for Death Piggy. Don't rely on the big book of Scott for the real GWAR story, but the pictures still make it worthwhile. Exactly. That's why I question everything with my guests here.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, there were a lot, there's so many of us related to GWAR, over the years, and there's so many years between now and then that, that recollections get different.
Sure, of course. Yeah, and that's what we do here on the show. And like I said, I do not represent any opinion here. I was not there. I cannot say. I am just the scientist. Speaking of the Alternatives, according to this, Chris Bopst was actually in Death Piggy?
Correct, yeah. We Dave wanted a little bit of freedom. We were a three-piece, and he had two jobs. So he thought that Dave also kind of wanted to be a guitar player. And
that's what he first played in GWAR.
Yeah. those of us who knew Dave's guitar playing knew that it was not a good idea. But
Okay.
you know,
Better bass player.
yeah, I think so. I think so. But you know, he wanted to play guitar, and he wanted a little bit of freedom to you know, kind of own the stage. Not that he didn't already. But yeah, we brought Chris in, you know, just to kind of see how it would work out. And you know, love Chris. And you know, I don't think you know, we just, it didn't work out. I think really because, as I recall, I think Chris missed a few practices, and you know, Dave you know, just kind of took issue with that. You know, you got to come to practice. So
Right.
so we kind of said, well, it's not working out. And
Well, he was in GWAR later on too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So he redeemed himself. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I guess let's, you know, we can get back to Death Piggy a little bit later, but let's talk about GWAR.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So what is the story? Wait, that was the Suicidal Tendencies show, right? Or
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
was the first time. Let me
Yep.
grab that flyer again. But yeah, tell me about that. Wait, I have where is it in my slideshow? I don't know. I'll find it. Tell me about how that happened.
Yeah.
Here it is.
So, you know, as I was saying, the 9:30 called us up. They said, you know, Suicidal Tendencies is playing. Do you want to open up? And you know, we knew it was going to be an audience that we didn't know very well. It was probably going to pull kids out of the suburbs that had never been to the 9:30 before, but you know, had seen Suicidal Tendencies on MTV, and we're going to come see them live. So, you know, once again, we're sitting around talking about, well, what are we going to do for the show? And we had the costumes, you know, Hunter was making the movie, and, you know, I don't think, you know, anybody really had the idea that the two would meet, but we thought, well, we'll put on the costumes. And I knew we had these songs that were kind of part of our set list, but just weren't part of the set list. They just didn't fit. You know, it was kind of, you know, everybody almost all the hardcore bands at the time kind of had a few metal songs that they played to sort of, you know, poke fun at heavy metal because, you know, it was the thing to do, you know, at the time. You know, heavy metal was kind of,
Yeah, even the Meatmen did that for a while.
Yeah. Heavy metal was kind of selling out or had sold out, and you know, it was that corporate rock that you know, that we didn't have much respect for at the time. So we had these songs, we had written them. They were kind of you know, parodies of heavy metal songs. And I thought, you know, like I said, I was a big fan of Kiss, and I thought, well, why don't we open up for ourselves as a heavy metal band, and we wear these costumes and we play those songs. And
was that Rock and Roll Party Town?
Exactly. You Ain't Shit, AEIOU, probably a couple of others. I think we might have covered Cold Gin or something like that. You know, Kiss's song Cold Gin. As I recall, we had maybe 5 songs that we did. We figured we'd have enough time to sort of do it before, you know, anybody knew what was going on, and then we, you know, run back down and change into, you know, Death Piggy gear. Or actually, I think it was the other way around. We played Death Piggy first, and then we came back as GWAR.
Okay.
The character of Mr. Magico.
Yes, let's talk about Mr. Magico.
I seem to have gotten stuck with that. It was really just kind of one time, and here's how it happened. We knew that we needed some time because we, you know, the 9:30 barely put up with our antics. You know, they, you know, always begrudgingly seemed to want us to play up there. So we knew that, you know, if we were going to do this, we weren't going to have a lot of time, and we needed to kind of distract people. So what we thought we would do is, as Death Piggy's leaving, I had a cape and a top hat and a wand.
Were you wearing this during Death Piggy, or no? You put it on?
No, I had those kind of tucked behind my amplifier.
Were these Hunter costumes or
no?
else?
No, these were something else. And I had this magic trick, which was ridiculous. It was basically for kids' parties, and you kind of, you know, lead the kids along. I won't go into too much detail. It was a stupid.
No, please go into as detail as possible.
Okay. So yeah, so it involved these two boxes, and you turn one around and not the other one, and then you lift the cover off, and there's a black rabbit in one and a white in the other. And you go through this thing. I had seen it at a kid's party, and somehow I thought, oh, this would be the perfect thing to do at a punk rock show. But basically, you keep turning one around and saying, oh, look, the rabbit, the black one is over here now. Now it's over here. Until you come to the point where you lift the covers off and one is red and the other's yellow. All right, so that's the magic trick. Nevertheless, it was. I just thought it would be absurd to do this at a punk rock show in front of an audience of people who were there to see suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, all they wanted was a Pepsi, man.
Right. So I'm up there in this. We finish playing. Everybody else runs down to the band room behind the stage to change into their GWAR costumes. And it's going to take some time, of course, but they weren't as elaborate as they are now, but,
Right.
Still, it was going to take at least 5 or 10 minutes for them to get these things on and come running back. And so we could do a GWAR set. So I'm up there trying to distract people long enough, to not only keep their attention, but to make it look like there's some sort of continuity to what's happening on stage. But yeah, so gave me the name of Mr. Magico as kind of a joke, but yeah, I'm standing up there in a top hat and a cape, trying to entertain a bunch of, like I said, kids who were there just to see suicidal tendencies. I was pretty sure at any moment they were going to come up on stage, drag me off, and just, kick my teeth in, because they were just not having it. Finally, as I'm flipping these rabbits around and, trying to pretend like they're being entertained by this magic trick. Well, I mean, there was no question they weren't, but, I kept up the charade as long as I could. And just in the nick of time, they come running back up the stage in costume, all the other guys. And we played a set. I threw on a guitar and, and
You kept the Magico costume on for the GWAR
yeah,
set?
I mean, I had no other choice, really.
Was Robert Turillo in Suicidal at the time?
I believe so. Yeah.
Here's the $1 million question. And maybe if Hunter's still here, you can help us here as well. Are there any pictures of you in costume or video? Even better.
There are not that I'm aware of. I've never seen one. Never.
We want to know as much detail about your costume as possible. But probably you've already provided that. But if there's anything else to it.
Of the Mr. Magico costume?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was really just a black cape, a top hat, and I think I was wearing jeans and probably a t-shirt at the time, and that was it.
What was the t-shirt?
Oh,
Who
knows? Who knows? But yeah, that was it. Now,
yeah, go ahead.
I will say this. Well, for the second show that we did.
Wait, before we get there, was the suicidal show, was that the one where you guys ruined some monitors?
Yeah, I don't think it was that show. We had been playing around with stage blood for quite a while, and the show where that happened, Scott Crawl had found a hobby horse body in the trash, and he was a sculpture major. Sculpture majors were always looking in the trash for stuff they could make sculpture out of. He found this thing, and it was hollow in the bottom. So we thought, okay, we'll fill it up with stage blood. We'll tape it up with duct tape, and then we'll have a sacrifice on stage. And basically the short story is, we had put down a bunch of mats and things like that to catch the blood. 930 had just bought a whole new set of stage monitors, and Scott's up there with a knife, hacking away at this thing, and the tape just wouldn't give and it wouldn't give. And just as the blood comes out, he's kind of hovering a little too far over the monitors, and it all just dumps right into the new stage monitor.
So this was a Death Piggy show, not a GWAR show?
It was pretty sure it was a Death Piggy show. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah. So yeah, stage blood had been around for a while before GWAR actually started. But
let's see. Who were the Nazi killers?
Yeah, so that was actually so that was Dave's idea.
That
You know,
was one of Dave's bands?
well, no, it was the same night actually, and to be honest, I think we might have actually done that as well. So, we had talked about opening for ourselves, with Death Pig and GWAR, and then Dave kind of added this other idea of opening for ourselves, and he had this idea that we would wear armbands with the Star of David on them and sing songs about killing Nazis. And I think maybe we had,
So you were in that? You were in the Nazi Killers?
Yeah, for sure.
Was it Sean as well? Who else was in the Nazi
Always all of
Killers?
us. Yeah,
It was just Death Piggy and a different name?
exactly.
Oh boy. How did that go over?
I don't think anybody really noticed, to be honest. The idea just went over their heads, or they just weren't paying attention, or really just didn't care. We were just the opening band, so whatever we did really didn't matter to people at all. But yeah, that was kind of part of it.
So tell me, okay, did you have character names in the Nazi Killers?
No, for sure. We did.
Okay.
No.
So tell me about the second GWAR show.
Yeah.
Which was apparently at Going Bananas, April 5th, 1985. And I believe this is the flyer.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And also the Nazi Killers again.
Yeah, made a reprise. We basically at that point just strapped on whatever pieces of costumes that we felt like putting on.
Were you Mr. Magico again, or were you something else? Ooh, so you were, okay. Tell me about this.
Yeah, just generic barbarian, number 4 or whatever. It was the only character at the time that had a name was Johnny Slutman, with Ben Eubank, our roommate and singer at the time. The rest of us just wore costume pieces, and the names came along, a little while after. So yeah, at that point, I was just another guy in a barbarian costume. I will say that I did a cameo with GWAR years later, just a little one song, and Scott Krall made me a costume, which is a beautiful thing. But it was a full wizard robe with the big tall cone,
really,
with stars and moons on it.
Wait, when was this?
This was probably maybe around 1989, something like that.
Had they put out their first album by then? Or somewhere around then?
I would have to say, yeah, probably.
So that was the real Mr. Magico?
Yeah, that was
Is there any pictures of that one?
No, not that I know of. There could be somewhere, but I've never seen it.
Does anyone still have that costume for reference? Maybe Scott still got it somewhere?
I've asked Scott, if he still had it, and I, as I recall, he said no, it had kind of disappeared. But
can you describe that in as much detail as possible?
Yeah, it was basically kind of your classic sort of wizard robe. It was purple with gold trim and the stars and moons all over it that he had cut out and appliqued on. The hat was, the big cone type thing, very difficult to kind of keep on my head at the time. But the cone with the gold trim around the edge, and the stars and moons all over it. Just a beautiful thing, kind of a, that royal purple and gold, gold trim. And I hadn't seen it before. He just kind of pulled it out as that evening before I got up on stage and played a song, and then I never saw it again after that.
That's funny. You came and you played guitar on a song?
Yep.
Do you remember which song you played?
I don't. It must have been, one of those original 3, probably, You Ain't Shit or Rock and Roll Party Town or one of those. But as I recall, I kind of plugged into one of the amps in the back line and couldn't hear myself. And
at least you looked cool, right?
At least I look cool. Exactly.
Is there any fun details you can remember about the first GWAR shows? Well, and I've heard Mike Bishop describe them as mostly you guys just making feedback, talking about how cool you were and not really playing songs. Is that true?
Kind of, yeah. That was sort of the gimmick, yeah. Ben was a theater major and kind of saw it as an opportunity to kind of play you know, you know, to do a parody of a rock and roll singer. And I think he kind of got embarrassed by the whole thing fairly early on. And, I think he kind of walked off stage after one of the shows
Oh no.
shortly after and just kind of disappeared for a while. But yeah, that was a thing. It was sort of a parody of a heavy metal show. And a lot of that was just sort of talking about, Ben talking about himself and just a lot of posturing and stuff like that, seemed funny to us at the time. And
I mean, I still think it's funny. I mean, the joke has lasted how many years now?
Exactly.
I know
It's a
this
little
is
more sophisticated now, but only slightly.
yeah, right. I mean, but the general idea. Mr. Wiggly and the Fabulous Jump Pumps, was that you too?
Sump Pumps. No, that
Jump
was not.
Pumps.
Yeah, that was another local band that I can't remember who was in that. For Richmond folks, I think Brooke Saunders was in that. Brooke was a big fixture in the Richmond underground scene. Just did a lot to promote bands and venues, and it sadly passed away a couple of years ago in a traffic accident. But I think that was his band.
Gotcha. So this is I know those were the only two GWAR shows you did, right? Or
Pretty sure, yeah. So the lines were a little blurry because so much of the so many of the songs we did and so many of the props that we kind of became GWAR props ultimately, were things that we were playing with in Death Piggy. So it kind of seems like I did more, but I think technically, really only those two shows.
Right.
And the reason was, Sean ran into some trouble. He went to prison for a couple of months. There was kind of a natural break where we just kind of thought, we took time off from everything. And Dave at the time, we really had to be honest, had to talk Dave into sticking with the idea of GWAR for a while because he wasn't the front man.
Right. Not yet.
Not yet. But at some point, it kind of clicked for him. And I think when Sean went to prison and Dave kind of started to see the potential for the band to become, a band plus, an art project at the same time, and give him a chance to kind of exercise a lot of his different talents. I think something clicked. He still wasn't the front man and wasn't, for some time, but he started to really embrace the idea that summer that Sean went to prison. I kind of went the other direction and thought, this isn't for me. But so I kind of got out, which was a good thing, I think, just because, I was wise enough at the time to realize, I wasn't going to be a contributing member, in any significant way. I was just an English major. I didn't know how to make stuff. So,
right.
So I knew that, I didn't have those skills, but, so yeah, I think it was a good thing that I kind of stepped aside and let other people kind of take over.
Sure. Here's one last question. Well, we'll see about GWAR. You guys have any questions about the original GWAR shows? Put them in the chat. This was a set list in the book from the next show without you, but I was wondering if this was a song that you guys had played called "I Want to Fuck You," and was that Boner?
It could have been. Yeah, I don't know.
I just thought of that now. I was like, that's a line from Boner.
I mean, the great thing about Dave was he could come up with, lyrics on the, on the spur of the moment. He didn't really need a song,
right,
to get, to get started. He'd just make it up as he went along, and so that could have been just one of those songs that he just improvised, and I'm sure it didn't last very long. But,
yeah, I'm sure. Okay, let's see. Oh wait, let's see what any comments let's break this up with some comments that I missed. We have more questions about the guitar. Do you still have it?
Oh, I wish I did.
You could sell it to the GWAR Museum.
Yeah, I really wish I had that guitar. It was such a good guitar, but for some reason,
And I don't know if you answered this, but what guitar is that? Looks like a Jackson body and Gibson headstock.
the one that I played.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was an Ibanez, right off the assembly line. So yeah, nothing custom. Now there was some friend of ours. I just saw that comment. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I like to talk about. But the Tommy Rodriguez was a friend of ours. Tommy is a guitar maker. He's a luthier, world-renowned guitar maker now. At the time, he was Sean's roommate, and he was just a friend of ours. He was the brother of Mike Rodriguez, who was a White Cross member. But Tommy is now a renowned guitar maker, mostly classical guitars, but he does some beautiful electric guitars. Very expensive, of course, but worth every penny. But yeah, Tommy had put on some striping on my Ibanez to make it look like Eddie Van Halen's guitar, kind of
Nice.
as a joke.
Mhm.
And I left it on because I thought, well, I'm not going to peel this stuff off. But underneath that tape, it was just a stock Ibanez guitar, the CN100, as I mentioned. I think I might have sold it to Tommy, who probably used it for parts. He was experimenting with pickups. For guitar players who are listening, Lindy Fralin was a friend of ours, a friend of Tommy's. Lindy makes some of the best guitar pickups in the world. He's another Richmond guy, and he and Tommy, I think, were kind of collaborating on winding pickups and things like that to kind of get better performance out of them at the time. But so I think that guitar sort of disappeared and probably wound up in parts. But if anybody knows Tommy Rodriguez and cares to reach out to him and ask him whatever happened to it,
Let's find it. Let's find those parts.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's get. What kind of picks did you use?
Yeah, so I used thin picks. I've always used Dunlop picks for some reason, and or D'Addario picks. I think I used thin for a long time because in playing some of that hardcore stuff, you really had to be fast, and a thin pick just really kind of helped, get those really quick chord changes moving. But yeah, either thin or medium Dunlop or D'Addario picks,
Nice.
which I think Dunlop made D'Addario's picks. But
There you go.
there you go.
We got some love for Hunter in the house. Yes, the Techno Destructor. Was he part of those original shows?
No,
Just was he there?
I don't remember. I think so. I think Hunter came in kind of like on the third or fourth show just after I had left. And it was really that summer where, Dave, I think, was starting to, work more closely with Hunter. Dave had moved into the Milk Bottle at that point, as I recall. And, he and Hunter were working on projects and building stuff. And as I recall, I wasn't involved in that because, like I said, I didn't know how to make stuff. But yeah, that summer that Sean went to jail, Dave was starting to really build more stuff, and I think he and Hunter started their relationship at that point.
Gotcha.
Prior to that, I think really Hunter was just focused on his movie, which, as I recall, was going to be called Scumdogs of the Universe. And I think he was just lending us his costumes, and
Sure.
that was kind of the extent of it. But yeah, that changed pretty quickly.
Has Death Piggy ever played Canada? Did you guys tour at all?
Not really. We did kind of the mid-Atlantic. We did DC. We did some stops in North Carolina, and that was kind of the extent of it. We didn't have the money and the resources at the time to really go that far, and so we never really got very far. Dave was Canadian.
Right, yeah.
He would have loved the idea. I was born in Buffalo, New York, so right on the provincial border there.
I was born in Canandaigua.
Okay, there you go. I know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Buffalo is cold. Buffalo, the home of green jelly.
That's right. That's exactly right. But my parents left it when I was about 3 years old because it was cold, and they were tired of the
And
cold.
the Goo Goo Dolls.
And who?
And the Goo Goo
Of
Dolls.
course, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
did you? Well, you're probably too young, but the Continental in Buffalo.
Yeah,
You know
no,
anything about it? Yeah, no.
yeah. I only went back there to visit family at the holidays, so I don't really know Buffalo at all.
Oh, we got an answer to "I Wanna Fuck You" was a cover of "You Really Got Me," but it sounded so bad nobody realized it. Thanks,
Okay.
Hunter.
Yeah,
Nice.
okay. I think I
Well,
remember
there
that
you
now
go.
that you mention it. Yeah.
This is a good question. What are your thoughts on the evolution of GWAR and how it started where it is now? And had you followed them through the years, or did you kind of lose interest? Or
Oh no, I followed them definitely through the years. I'm so proud of those guys. I mean, they put in all the hard work that I knew I could never, never do. The years of touring and the, the bus rides and across country and those, in that broken down old school bus. I never could have lived that life. And, you know, I've never really, I moved away from Richmond, and I really was sad that I did, you know, wasn't able to kind of have those guys in my life, but really have never lost touch. Um, and I'm just so proud of what they've been able to do, and that they've been able to do it for so long, to make a career out of it. Not just for themselves, but for so many people who have been involved in the band over the years. And for the impact that it's had on other people. I mean, I went to see the movie, as you can see there. That was the screening of the
so that's
movie.
what I was going to ask. Was this the screening? And that was going to be my next question. What did you think of the documentary?
Yeah, I mean, it was good, but knowing
There was no you weren't in it.
No, not really, and I didn't really expect to be. I mean,
I know.
I'm in the
Scott
credits.
Kroll wasn't in it.
That's right. There's so many people who aren't. But it's such a complicated story. It would have taken, several more hours to tell. Even just to get everybody in there.
That's why we do the GWARPod.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That was sort of like, I mean, it was a good idea, but once I saw that, I was like, there needs to be an avenue, a vehicle for these stories to come out.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
long form.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I liked the movie. I thought it did a good job for what it was. Granted, I was absent for so much of that time, only visiting, when I could, which was fairly rare. I was up in DC, but so it wasn't too far, but life gets in the way. So I don't know what Dave and Hunter's relationship kind of became. And, I'm sure, it had its rocky moments, and the film seems to suggest that. But, Dave was a hard person to work with.
Yes. What was Dave really like? You teased
Yeah,
that in the comment. Let's hear it.
I did. I mean, I love Dave. He was a good-hearted guy in so many ways. Also, deeply insecure, and in ways that many of us were as well, but he was hard to work with. It was tough to collaborate sometimes, especially when, you had an idea that was good, but that he didn't like, or didn't fit in with his picture. And that was one of the reasons there were many reasons that I left GWAR, early on. And one was that, Dave and I had this conversation about, it's just mayhem up on stage. And we talked about this a little earlier, but, people don't know what's going on. We need to put some effort into figuring out how to make this clear to people, what's happening, what the characters are doing, and why they're there. And Dave really wasn't interested in that. He liked the chaos. And, I could kind of see right away that we were just going to not, be able to resolve that difference of opinion.
Did you have okay, here's a question. Did you have an idea of where you would have wanted to take it?
I mean, I think originally, I think it would have been, I don't think it would have been much different.
Right.
But, I think.
Because you're a writer, right? Were you like interested in helping write the storyline?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could definitely have taken it in that direction to, where characters were a little bit more developed, where there was a little bit more of a plot line to the stage show.
Well,
I mean,
that's what it is now. So
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's become that way, but I think Dave kind of resisted that for a long time. The chaos was really kind of the fun part for him. But I guess really the point I was trying to make is that that he was difficult. He could be difficult to work with. I mean, you love the guy, but
You don't want to get too close to the flame sometimes.
yeah.
That's how I stay a member of Green Jelly. Don't
Yeah,
get
it's
too close to the flame.
right. You have to kind of, either accept the fact that you're not going to have, you're not going to be fully part of the creative process, or you're going to come to grief with Dave in one way or another. And I mean, I think some of that came out in the movie,
Sure.
but I think there was so much more to the story, and perhaps so much that we'll really never understand it. But yeah. Bottom
That's
line,
fair.
I like the movie, and I think it did as good a job as it could do in
Yeah.
that period of time. In that, in an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was.
Yeah. I think this podcast is longer than that movie. So
Oh, right. Yeah. There you go.
that's why we love this. Were you a fan of the X-Cops?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, all that stuff those guys were doing is fun. I went to the shows as much as I could. A couple times when they came up to, I was up in DC for about 15 years, and went to a few of the 9:30 shows, went to a few of the barbecues, and saw them as much as I could. In fact, there was one opportunity I had to kind of second guess my decision to get away. I was out in school in Arizona for about 3 years, and GWAR came through, and I came to see the show, and it happened to be at a time, and I still don't know exactly what the issue was, but Mike Dirks was having some issues back home and needed to leave the tour and fly back to Richmond. And Dave said, "Hey, do you want to finish out the tour with us?" And I really
When was this, in the 80s, 90s?
This would have been probably around 1990, and I really thought hard about it. But I was in graduate school at the time, and I just couldn't pick up and leave in the middle of the semester, and finally just had to say no. But it was awfully tempting for a while there to think that I might have a second chance and reconsider the
Well, here's a similar but related question, I guess, about Death Piggy. You left Death Piggy for a while, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
And then Steve came in, and then you were both in the band for a while.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
Yeah. So I had I was living in an apartment, basically overlooking the Lee Monument, which was a kind of a big, story in the news. It was torn down.
A subplot sort of the new GWAR comic book, by the way.
Yeah. There was some talk about, putting up a statue of Dave. I mean, that's serious talk. But,
Right. Yeah.
Some
I
people
signed the
thought-
petition, sure.
I did too. But anyway, I was in an apartment building that basically overlooked that circle, and it was an old place that had been kind of split up into apartments, and some of the wiring caught on fire, and several of the apartments were basically burned out. Mine was one of them. The wiring was in the roof.
Right. I did read that there was a big fire you had. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was basically homeless for a short while. Had some friends who took me in, and, while I was getting back on my feet, but, I just had a lot of things to deal with at the time. Dropped out of school because I just couldn't, I couldn't keep going to classes, trying to get all this stuff sorted out because I had nothing. So I just said, "Hey, I need time off, and I don't know if I'll come back." At the time, I wasn't sure.
So it was just like life and logistics. It wasn't like an internal struggle or anything like that.
Nothing at all like that. In fact, I think it really wasn't long before I missed it and realized, gosh, I got to figure out how to get my life back in order. If for nothing else, then I need to be back in the band. But yeah, in fact, I left Richmond for a little while, and then kind of got back on my feet and came back and jumped back in the band. Steve was in it. Steve, great guitar player, and loved playing with him.
Any
Very,
of those recordings you found, version of the band with both of you playing?
I don't think so.
Oh
I don't
man,
think so. Yeah.
that'd been interesting to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had him on the GWARPod, by the way. So
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have the
Steve and
two
I,
living members of Death Piggy. I got them now.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly, that's,
I know. I
you know,
know. Let me throw some other random Death Piggy questions at you.
sure.
What was it like playing with Wendy O. Williams?
Oh man, she was the sweetest person you could imagine. She was so
And did
down
she
to
blow
earth.
up the car and everything and do all
No,
that?
no,
No, just
no props that I recall. Just
she was
straight
the
set.
prop.
She was the prop. But very interested in, health food. She was very particular about the food that she ate while she was there. And
Girl, she was fit.
she was, but just the sweetest person. I couldn't believe. I mean, because she has a stage persona that you would think would be the exact opposite of that. But
Well, I've noticed that the scarier you are on stage, probably the nerdier you are backstage.
there's probably some truth to that.
GWAR.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Bunch of
Exactly.
nerds,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I
right?
mean, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. We
Oh,
were.
so that started in the Death Piggy days, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dave was. I mean, I had played it in high school and was kind of over it, but by the time I got to college, but when Dave Brocky said, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons and be the dungeon master, I kind of thought, gosh, yeah, that sounds. I'd like
I'm
to
sure
see
it was an
how that goes.
experience, right?
But it was fun, yeah. So yeah, definitely. Uh,
Are
yeah,
there any other like local bands you want to, give credit to? And one being, I saw that you played with The Guilty. That was Mike Bishop's band. Do you remember them at all?
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I kind of remember them.
I mean, he was young too. I mean, you
Yeah,
were young. He was way, way young.
exactly.
16 maybe.
Exactly. I mean, part of the problem was, there were a lot of bands that you would play with once and then never see again. And
Right.
and I think we maybe played with the Guilty once.
Hmm.
And I don't think I knew those guys at the time. So, it's just kind of one of those things. I just don't remember it very well. But
What
then
about, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Mike and were roommates a little bit later.
Oh,
So
really?
we finally got to know each other a little
Cool.
bit better. But
Okay. When
yeah,
he was in GWAR?
yeah, he was in GWAR at the time. Yeah. Yep.
Nice. I saw you played with Scream. Was Dave Grohl in the band at the time?
So I believe he might have come later. I was trying to figure that one out. But there's a chance he was there. But of course, we didn't know
Yeah.
who he was. He was just another kid on the drums at the time, if he was in the band. But
How do you feel? Do you think if GWAR, if that whole thing where you guys took the costumes and wore them on stage and the GWAR thing happened, how do you think Death Piggy would have progressed?
I don't think it
Or
would have
did you
changed.
have any like idea of like what your sound would be like, or where the material was going at the time?
I mean, I think it was. I don't think it would have changed much. I mean, I think we would have gotten better at what we did. But we never intended to break up. We always thought of GWAR as just sort of one of a spinoff,
Right.
if you will, of what we did. And the Slave Pit was always kind of a vehicle for whatever creative outlet or endeavor,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I know Dave had lots of like side projects and probably maybe some of the other guys too. Do you remember any of those, like Nuclear Dog Shits or Milk or any of those things that he did?
Yeah, I remember.
Or maybe, every time I ask this question, I get one that maybe I've never heard of before.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Nazi Killers.
Right. Yeah, yeah, a lot of those bands were just sort of something he would do for a little while, or kind of pop-up bands, I guess, as you would as we call them today. But Nuclear Dog Shit was actually his high school band.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever hear them?
I never did. No,
Oh.
no. And I still, to this day, I'm not sure if that was really a band that anybody else ever heard either.
Right. Yeah, sure. Were there any other Dave projects or that opened for Death Piggy at some point, or?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Because Death Piggy was always kind of and this is one of the reasons why Dave was not really too interested in doing GWAR at the beginning or singing for GWAR. Was because he usually burned himself out during a Death Piggy set.
Sure.
And just, he just didn't have anything left. So opening for Death Piggy was just never something that he would have considered doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Death Piggy was really kind of, in many ways, the way, the Dave Brocky experience kind of became.
I felt like that had the essence of Death Piggy, like
it did. It did.
Energy.
It was
and he played some of the songs too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it was really more of the, the free form Dave Brocky that Death Piggy allowed him to be.
Do you have any favorite GWAR albums or songs or periods, eras, projects, movies?
Well,
anything that you were just like, holy shit.
I mean, Hello, of course, is one of my favorites, if only because, I have some songwriting credit there.
Sure.
But the America Must Be Destroyed. I was in Richmond when the video was being made, as well as some of Skull
in Wonderland. Yeah. Sure.
So I remember those albums and those songs really well. I always thought a lot of The Road Behind. I just thought that was a great song. Michael was my roommate at the time. I think.
Okay.
I think he was still. I think that was kind of that had overlapped. But
was he doing Capone yet? Capone.
Oh, Capone. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Capone was a chemical that had been dumped into the James River.
Right. I just know it from the band name and the Dead Kennedys song.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was taken from that. But yeah, Capone was playing. I was in Richmond for a good bit of that, and kind of got to see the beginnings of Capone and some of their original or some of their videos and things like that.
Nice.
So yeah, I remember those very well and very fondly. So, have
you listened to the newest GWAR record, and what do you think of it?
I have not.
Oh man.
I think I was it. Is it Ratcatcher? Is that one on?
Yeah, that's on.
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I've listened to that.
That's another one, kind of like The Road Behind, or
Yeah.
Just Rock and Roll Never Felt So Good. I know Mike wrote that one too.
Gotcha. Yep. Exactly. And I Want to Be Your Monster. Is that one on that? On this
that's
one?
That's the previous one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to that as well. So trying to keep up, but
it's awesome. You got to check it out. I actually argue that it might be the best GWAR album.
Well, for sure. Then I'll take a listen. But yeah, I have to admit I haven't been able to do.
Sure.
That.
When's the last time you saw GWAR?
So that would have been the very last barbecue before we lost Dave.
Okay.
Yeah. There were a couple of opportunities that I had to go. There was a show in Richmond that I was going to go to, and it just didn't work out. Something got in the way, and just for some reason just didn't make it. But I hate to ask those guys for to get on the guest list because it just feels
for that Mudvayne tour. It might be worth asking.
Yeah, I might do that, but it's just it's their job, and I don't want to just kind of show up and expect them to entertain me. Sure. Or
it's like, geez, if every member of GWAR wanted to be on the guest list, it'd be the whole show. Or
That's right.
The whole room.
That's right. but it kind of feels like if they were to show up at my, my job,
Right.
but I
No, of
appreciate
course.
that.
That's why I always find with buying tickets, it's like you got to support the things you love so you can have more of it, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Did you play in any other bands after Death Piggy and GWAR?
Yeah. Yeah. I played around with some stuff. Nothing that really, lasted very long. But after I
Did
left
you do any
Richmond,
record anything with them?
no, I really didn't like being in the studio, to be
Mm.
honest with you. Yet another reason why I left the band. I just found that just crushingly dull to sit in the studio and spend weeks or even days just
Well, I
going.
heard Hello was recorded in about 2 days.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that would have been too much for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've continued to play. I kind of went into some different types of music. I played rockabilly for a while. Played the upright. In fact,
Oh,
there you
nice.
go.
Sweet.
I played some bluegrass for a while. Just kind of playing around with some acoustic stuff, and I play I don't know, some blues and soul these days just to kind of entertain myself. Um, and but nothing formal these days. But yeah, I played with a rockabilly band up in Maryland for a couple of years, and then played with a couple of bluegrass groups in DC. But that's kind of been about it.
Have you checked out Steven's ska band?
I have, yeah, they're incredible, yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
Did you have a favorite Death Piggy song? And why is it Fat Man?
you know,
And who are those children on that song? Where did they come from?
oh yeah, I think that was just an effect that we did in
Oh,
the
really?
studio. Yeah,
It sounds
basically.
very convincing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was basically just a loop that was sped up, and
Mm,
and uh,
clever.
yeah, something we did. I think that was in Inner Ear that we did that, but um, yeah, if, I may be wrong, but Fat Man is not a bad choice.
Because I know you wrote about it. Well, maybe not your favorite, but the best example of a Death Piggy song or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And really, the
A
impression that
good
I have
one.
of that song is every time we would play it, the room would just explode.
It's definitely a circle pits kind of song.
Yeah, yeah. So you couldn't help but just feed off that energy that would come from that song. Um, I don't know. So many that were just fun to play. You know, everything off that Love War album. I mean, it was just so much fun. Or Love War EP was just fun to
Oh,
play.
let me do my show and tell before I forget. Where did that go? Oh, yeah. I do have a little bit of an original Death Piggy, although I guess they ran out of sleeves, so it was wrapped in a Mr. Donut
Oh
comic
yeah!
book.
Wow.
But I do have some original Death Piggy 7 inches.
Very nice.
I don't even know which one is this. Welcome, Boner, Showbiz, Dinner in the Morning.
Yeah, that's Death Rules the Fairway.
Were you on this one?
I was. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's my little show and tell. I don't even remember how I got these, but I think Dave was selling some extras at some point.
Yeah, actually, that one is R45, the one with Joey on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's two of them in here. Do you have any old Death Piggy stuff? Well, I guess you've gotten some acquired recordings lately, but like, what's your archive like of Death Piggy material?
Well, sadly, and actually, before I answer that question, I have to say one of my favorite songs was "Whipping Around the Bay," which was
Really?
not a very characteristic song, but it was on Death Rules the Fairway. But it was just a very atmospheric song that was very different from anything we.
Did that like go extended when you played it live? Because I know there's
Absolutely.
kind of like a fade out on that one.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It was fun, and memorable just because it was very different from most of our stuff. But yeah, a lot of fun to play, and also because I got to be a little bit more, the guitar was a little bit more a factor in that song. But I think we kind of captured captured it on the record. But to get back to your question about the archive, not so good. And unfortunately, most of it, when I had that fire in my apartment, was lost.
Ugh.
Flyers, test pressings, demo recordings.
Demo recordings? No.
Yep, all
Does
lost.
anyone have a copy of those?
Occasionally they show up, and I'll see
Yeah.
them, on some of the collectors groups on Facebook.
Interesting.
Somebody will say, "Look what I found," or look.
I haven't come across any of those.
Yeah,
Interesting.
It's pretty rare, but I have seen them.
Get this man a copy of those. Do you have copies of those?
I don't.
Did you reach out to any of those people?
No.
I know some of the GWAR collectors watch the show, so
No, I'd rather the collectors
make
have
a comment. Yeah, sure, keep it, but share the wealth with the man, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've had my opportunity. I was there, so
Right. Yeah.
I don't need those things, and I'm happy that people still want them, and that they're still still a value.
What about videos? Because I know there's a little bit of video footage in the documentaries. I say that plural because I know there's another one that was in the works that never came out.
Yeah, there are clips here and there. It was so much more difficult to do at the time. You had to have a big piece of equipment, to take a video. There's VCR recorders, and taking one of those things into a punk rock show was not a wise decision in most cases.
Who has the videos? Is it all in the GWAR archive? Is it all?
I don't know. I mean, I think there are bits and pieces there, but and this far out, a lot of that tape has begun to degrade. So if it's sitting in somebody's box, box of collectibles in their attic or whatever, it's probably no good. But yeah. And I say that actually a lot of the tapes that I've gotten, at least the audio recordings, have held up pretty well. We got a couple of recordings that we baked to make sure they wouldn't turn into sludge, and they've held up pretty well.
Nice.
And we were able to get good digital copies made. So whatever's come my way so far, we've been able to salvage, but sadly a lot less than I'd like there to be. But yeah, I mean, finding a lot of old video footage when it did exist. I mean, it would have been hard even then.
Someone must have something because it ended up in that documentary, a little clips.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were at least 2 or 3 times that I remember seeing a video camera at our shows, but only just 2 or 3 times.
You don't know who were the filmers?
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, named a name that I recognize.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Who? Michael something.
Oh, there was a guy named Michael Lelly who I think might have had.
That's not even who I was thinking of, but good. Yes, keep talking.
Yeah, I don't know where he is. I think he's somewhere in the DC area now. I think he kind of lost touch with, folks from those days. But I think he might have had a camera. Yeah.
Find out.
Who were you thinking of, or can you think of who?
I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna look it up, so I know where to find the name. I believe. Oops. Let's see. Michael D. Moore. Does that ring a bell?
Possibly.
He filmed some of the really early GWAR shows. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, not somebody that I knew well.
Gotcha. Alan Russell says, I once asked Dave about kids on Fat Man because I thought it was kids too. He said it was a harmonizer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't in the studio for that part. But I remember them working on that piece. But harmonizer makes perfect sense.
Get in your last minute questions. Is there anything that I missed? Or what are you doing now, Russ?
Yeah, so I'm a writer. Basically, I work for University of Virginia. Basically, a science writer is probably the easiest way to sum it up. I write about research that that folks here are doing in the sciences and social sciences and things like that. Kind of trying to digest, what hardcore research means to the rest of us, and kind of tell those stories that give us a little bit of hope for the future.
That's good. We need a little bit of hope for the future.
Exactly. I mean, there are discoveries being made all day. Every day in just about every university, and there's always a kind of a kernel of hope to them. Somebody's making something a little bit better. Somebody's finding a way to cure something, or finding a way to get us a little closer to a cure for something. So, it's kind of nice to be able to tell those stories.
Interesting.
But that's kind of what I do. I've been in communications and publishing since basically since I left Richmond, and so still doing that, and maybe we'll retire someday, but not yet.
We can all hope, right? Didn't the drummer of Keep Hone become a congressman?
I don't know. That's a good question. I can't remember.
We're gonna get I should try to get Tim Harris on this show.
Yeah,
wasn't his brother the original drummer of Keep Hone?
I can picture the original drummer.
Let's see. Let me consult the book. Let's see what it says. Are there any other, I don't know, details that we missed about the original GWAR shows that are interesting? Like, we want to know about all the fun stuff from the GWAR shows.
Yeah.
And do you feel like there's a distinguished a difference between the original GWAR and GWAR? Do you consider them separate bands?
I don't really. I mean, I think the concept was there from the beginning and has only just become more sophisticated. Here
we go.
I mean,
Keep Hone, Seth Harris.
Oh, Seth, right. Yep.
And is that Tim Harris's brother? Or are they different Harrises?
I never made that connection that they might have been related.
I just kind of assumed because of the last name, but actually they're spelled differently in this book. I don't know if that's an error.
No, I think you're right. I think they were not related, and I think somebody did tell me that at one point, that they spelled them differently, and
interesting,
and we're not related. But I don't know what happened to Seth, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I know several people from the punk scene, not in Richmond necessarily, but I know there was a friend of ours down in Raleigh, North Carolina, who became a politician, a state senator, maybe. And so, yeah, Seth became a politician. I wouldn't be surprised. Nice. But yeah, and of course, back to the GWAR question. I mean, I know I've told this story before about the.
Please tell the story again.
The name.
Yes.
But it was basically that very day, that we came up with the idea to sort of open for ourselves, and with the Nazi Killers, opening for ourselves. But we were there sitting around talking about all of this stuff, and a friend of ours named Tim Herman, who was kind of a friend of the band, and was kind of always there, supporting us from the very beginning. We're talking about, well, what do we call this? And, he was the one who kind of made this noise. And I immediately thought, gosh, yeah, nobody has named a band after a noise before. Nobody's thought of that. And that's a really good idea. And I just said, well, let's call it that. And again, we were like, well, we'll do that. We'll use that until we think of something better. And, I think it really never got better. It just got shorter and easier to spell. Right. But yeah.
Wait, there was another story in the book that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So Chris Bopes claims he almost died at the second GWAR show.
Yeah, that's
Tell
right.
me about that. And what was supposed to happen?
Yeah. Once again, we were talking about what are we going to do at this show, and one of the ideas that we thought of was, I don't remember whose idea this was, but we thought, why don't we hang somebody in the show?
Well, Alice Cooper did it.
Yeah, I guess that must have been it. Yeah, and so somehow Chris got volunteered, or maybe he volunteered himself. I don't think. I always remember Chris, not entirely willing to, to be involved in some of these things, and I don't think
Sure.
he was entirely willing to be, to be hung. But somehow he got talked into it, and they created a harness for him, that would prevent him from actually dying. Slung it over the rafters above the stage, and at one point, I guess several of us started hauling him up. The harness immediately slipped off and didn't work, and we could immediately see that he was in some sort of difficulty. And I think in the moment, somebody just said, stop. And we did. And
I think it was Scott Kroll that was on the other side of that, right?
Might have been. Yeah. But I seem to remember several of us kind of pulling on this rope, trying to get him off the ground. And several of us were focused more on the fact that he wasn't coming up high enough off the ground to make it look plausible, and not noticing that he was, he had lost his airway at that time.
Right.
But fortunately, somebody saw it and said, "Hey, stop." But yeah, it's true.
Do you remember? Was there like a storyline attached to that, or was it just part of the chaos?
I think it was just part of the chaos. I don't think there was really any justification in the show for it to happen. It was just a prop that we wanted to use.
So I think I'll end it on this one. And if you don't have an answer, feel free to make one up, because I know you're a writer. What is the mythos behind Mr. Magico?
I never really gave it much thought. No. I take that back. We did talk about it at one point. Very early, of course, in the whole, in the discussions about, are these going to become characters in the GWAR universe? We talked about the idea that Mr. Magico was actually a character, and I wasn't too into it at the time. It was really, for me, it was just kind of a, it was an expedient to get people on and off the stage, and wasn't something I ever wanted to do again. But then somebody, it might have been Dave, said, no, let's do that. Let's approach it this way. Let's assume that Mr. Magico is this bumbling magician who, by mistake, conjures up GWAR in a cave in the Antarctic.
Wow.
And I thought that was a good idea. But then as I was, stepping back from the band, it kind of faded away. And then, the other characters and other stories kind of took over. But
right, of course.
Or it just didn't fit, in the direction.
That's interesting, though. You were the original origin of GWAR.
Yeah, that was.
And in a way, you sort of were, because you met Dave and Sean on that one day and formed Death Piggy, which became GWAR.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm going to claim you are responsible for GWAR, Russ. How do you feel about that?
Well,
I say that with a grain of salt, of course.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
or magic dust.
I'm happy to say that I was part of it. I'm also happy to say that so many more people have put in so much more work and effort.
But the initial boom, sort of came from you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you and Dave, but
exactly. I mean, like I said, I was kind of, it's kind of joking in that little teaser I put onto the, added onto your post.
Yes. See,
But
did we miss anything in there? Let's make sure. We don't want to leave anyone hanging.
yeah.
I think we covered it all. Is there anything else to the day that GWAR was invented story? Well, that's kind of what we're talking about, right?
That's just it. I mean, that was the day, and it was me, it was Dave, it was Ben Eubank, Tim Herman. We were sitting there, and I think it was that group of us, 4 of us, who really came up with the core idea. Sean was really not all that into it either. Sean was really more of a.
You remember what his character was? Or did they didn't even have one? Or did Dave even have a character name for the first 2 shows?
No, at that point, no, absolutely not. Nobody else did.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Sean was really more interested in power pop and punk rock and stuff like that. Heavy metal, and certainly GWAR was just never something that he entertained in any serious way. So he was happy to be out of it. But yeah, I mean, for that day, the 4 of us, I think really that was where the idea was born. It's come so much farther, but I think, but yeah, that was the day, and that was where it all began.
I think we did it. I think that's a pretty complete story. Let's see what do we have up on the GWARPod coming up next. It's the Neon Lords of Toxic Wasteland, talking about your nerdy Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. This is one that was very heavily influenced by GWAR. I don't know. We're going to find out. It's going to be one of those fun ones where we just get to nerd out as fans. And then it's the humongous fungus of Urungus. Do you know that fans have created their own GWAR sort of universe characters? This is one of them.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you're into punk rock, on my other show, March 30th, Tsunami Bomb will be here with me on my show GWARPod, which is my non-GWAR related pod. My other show is about Phantom of the Opera. Do you have any connection to Phantom of the Opera or favorite Phantom of the Opera version?
Absolutely not. I can say that I'm familiar with it, but
that's fair. Yeah, that's why you're on the GWARPod and not Found a Phantom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't even think I've seen one of the movies, which I probably should do.
You should watch that Lon Chaney one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who doesn't like Lon Chaney?
Yeah, it's so famous. Caught the beginning and just in time for the end. Yep, this is the end. Any last words for the Bohabs, Russ?
I don't know. Thanks for watching.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was definitely a thrill. I think we had an most epic conversation. I'm excited to hear some new old Death Piggy one day.
Yes.
That's something I didn't know about, and I'm very excited about now.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'll get in touch with Dan Emery from the record label and see what his plans are. But
excellent.
Hopefully that will come out soon, and we'll get those songs out there.
Awesome, Russ. Wait, do we have one more question? Just thank you. Can we hear background on Johnny and Joey Slutman? Is there any background on their characters?
I think
yeah.
I think it was just, I don't think there was really much to say. Johnny Slutman was just sort of Dave didn't want to sing in both bands. So Ben, like I said, was a theater major, and he just, he seemed to think that would be a fun thing to do. So we put him up there and put him in costume and gave him a name. He was the only character at the time that had a name. Like I said, he thought it was funny, and then I think he kind of fell out of love with it fairly quickly. It was just a little bit too over the top for him, and he kind of backed away. And then,
is he still working today in acting? Do you know anything about that?
He's not. He lives over in Roanoke, and I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, and definitely need to.
Maybe I should get him on the show.
He might be willing to. I'll see if I can dig up a phone number for him and
that'd be great.
Send it your way.
You.
And then Joey. Joey was a singer in a hardcore band from Newport News or the Virginia Beach area. I can't remember if it's Newport News or specifically or not, but but yeah, he had moved to Richmond and basically stepped in when Ben stepped out. And at that point, I was kind of out of the band as well. So I don't know kind of
Right.
how that story went. But
And that was, oh my God, I don't want to forget his name. Joe and Aroma.
yeah,
Did you know him at all?
I did. And still in touch through social media.
Yeah,
but
I have some of his side project. I know he still makes music sometimes.
he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Punk rock librarian or Thugbrarian, I think is his. He's I think that was the career that he went into was library science. So still doing pretty well at that, as I understand. But
both scientists in a way, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything you want to promote for yourself? You have a website or anything, or
I need one. I at least need to maybe put together a Death Piggy site.
Yeah, is Death Piggy ever gonna, they're not on Spotify or anything like that? We're gonna rectify that maybe.
It's it's something I think about, and then I kind of think, gosh, I wish I had the time. But
yeah, of course.
But I do have some web development skills that I've picked up over the years, so it's not like I can't. But
Nice.
yeah, someday I'll find the time for it. And but I think the main thing is keep an eye out for that CD. Hopefully, it'll come out at some point in the future. Maybe not too far distant future, but that's the next thing to look for. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much. Come back for the next one. Follow me on Instagram, GWARPod. That's where I hang out most of the time. Like us or follow us on Spotify and Facebook. I mean, not Facebook, on YouTube. Like this video. I want to see at least 10 likes by the time I get offline here. And thanks so much. I guess I'm just gonna play it out with the theme song one more time. Thanks for coming to the GWARPod.
GWARPod comes from on
GWARPod. GWARPod.